Hello viewers, well 2022 was a fantastic year for analog toys, and I thought to kind of wrap up the year I would do a top 10 countdown of my best toy pickups of the year. Now this isn't the top 10 best figures released in 2022, this is my personal list of my 10 favourite pickups. There's a mix of vintage, a mix of modern, so without further ado let's get into my list of the top 10 best pickups of 2022. Stay tuned.
Come with me, toy fans.
Hey toy fans, my name is Tony and welcome back to the Analog Toys YouTube channel. Now in my number 10 slot is the 2-pack of the Tom Baker Doctor Who action figure with the robot from Character Options. And this 2-pack really was my gateway drug into collecting Character Options Doctor Who action figures. I only have a very small collection. I really wanted to focus on the Tom Baker Doctor Who era, and when I saw this 2-pack pop up on eBay Australia, I just couldn't say no, and it actually inspired me to fill out a small selection of action figures and go on to make the video about my journey to collect Tom Baker Doctor Who action figures. Alright, coming in at number 9 is the original white TIE Fighter that I purchased from my good friend Matt Swafford at Reclaimers Vintage Toys. While not an overly rare vintage Star Wars piece, it is quite hard to find in quite white condition without the toy having gone really yellow. This one isn't perfect, but it's as close to mint as I need for my collection. And combined with the fact that I picked up the TIE Interceptor when I was at Joe Fest back in July, so this is the second TIE Fighter I've picked up in 2022, it now means that I have all 4 of the vintage Kenner Star Wars TIE Fighters, and rounding out that kind of mini collection was very satisfying, so that's why this white TIE Fighter made the list. Now at number 8 is the Marvel Legends 20th Anniversary Captain America action figure. And even though I stepped away from collecting Marvel Legends very shortly after acquiring this figure, the last 2 figures I actually got were the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man and the retro carded Lizard. And unfortunately, due to the increasing prices of these action figures from Hasbro, I've had to step away from this particular line. But I'm glad that I didn't step away before picking up this 20th Anniversary Captain America, because it is absolutely stunning. I really like the 80th Anniversary Captain America that I already had, but I much prefer the brighter colour scheme on this new 20th Anniversary Cap. And of course the alternate heads where you can have an unmasked Steve Rogers, I really enjoy that. I know some collectors are a little bit frustrated with the 3 holes that are in the shield. These holes are there for you to attach a number of different effects. And the shield is somewhat unsightly when there's no effects attached and it's just got these 3 random holes in it. But I quite like the bullet effect anyway, so with the bullet effect added, it gives this figure a nice dynamic appearance. And I really like the addition of those shoulder straps there for carrying the shield on his back. Now my number 7 favourite toy pickup of 2022 is the small Cobra Night Landing set. I acquired this set from eBay. Although it's very small and very basic, it has that quintessential deep blue Cobra colour scheme, tons of accessories, and it's just one of those really interesting toy pieces from the early years of Hasbro G.I. Joe, which is not exceedingly rare or anything like that. It's just something that hasn't come across my collecting path over the last 30 odd years that I've been into collecting. And when I saw this on eBay at a good price, I had to snap it up because Firefly is my favourite Cobra action figure of all time, and he needed a ride, and what better ride to give him than the Cobra Night Landing. Alright, at number 6 on the list is a Valaverse Action Force figure. Now we've had a lot of Valaverse Action Force product this year. It was very hard to choose. I almost went with Trigger, but then just 2 days before Christmas, my Valaverse Special Deployment series arrived, and maybe I'm picking it at the moment because it's a recent acquisition and I'm still quite enamored with it, but that is the Dorkside exclusive Infantry Commando. The Valaverse Action Force toy line has given us so many terrific troop builders, and you know, the line's only been around or only been in our hands for a little over 12 months. And I almost went with the Delta Trooper, which is actually 2 sets where you buy the basic figure and then you buy the gear pack and you combine them. But then right at the end of the year, at the Death Knock, the Infantry Commando comes swooping in to my PO box, and I opened it up, and it's a single issue figure. It's not a basic figure and a separate gear pack. It's all in one set. He comes with a ton of gear and accessories. I love the colour scheme, and I will be talking a bit more about this action figure in my collector's guide to the Action Force Special Deployment Series video, which is coming very, very soon. Now, my fifth favourite pickup of 2022 is a vintage toy item that goes all the way back to the 1960s. And that's this 1964 vintage 12-inch G.I. Joe Dress Marine. I only acquired the uniform. I already had a number of spare figures laying around, quite good condition figures. And for many years, I kind of overlooked this set as kind of one of the more run-of-the-mill uniforms from the G.I. Joe Action Marine line. But I have plans to make a video about that range of figures and outfits, and this was the only set I didn't have. So I not only picked up this uniform, I actually picked up a very rare mail-away variation of the uniform. But once I received it in the mail and put it onto this figure and stood him there for display, I was just enraptured with him. And it's been a long time since I've added a new 1960s G.I. Joe piece to the collection. This is a gorgeous item, and I'm very happy that I picked it up this year. Alright, my fourth favourite pickup of 2022 comes from a very good friend of mine. This was a donation from my buddy Keith Knight. And that is this incredibly rare, but also very simple, foam board Incredible Hulk glider toy. These items are insanely fragile. It's amazing that any of them have survived. And this was one of those toys that I had in childhood, but had completely forgotten that I'd owned until I saw another one. You know, when I opened up this box from Keith and it had this foam glider inside, I was like, damn, I had that when I was a kid. It's got the small red plastic clip that joins onto the front of the glider so that you can hang this small kind of 2-inch high Incredible Hulk action figure. Well, it's not even an action figure, is it? It's not articulated. It's just a mini figurine. But given my love of this particular Marvel comic book character that dates all the way back to the Bill Bixby TV show, I've got a very focused collection of Incredible Hulk items, and this is a wonderful addition to that particular set. So thank you again to my buddy Keith Knight. Alright, coming in at number 3 is another generous donation to the channel this year. And this one came from my buddy mvargo97, and that's the vintage Hasbro G.I. Joe Real American Hero Killer Whale. And I was absolutely blown away when mvargo not only donated this, but paid a lot of money to ship it from the United States to Australia. It was in immaculate condition. The version that mvargo sent me had no decals on it, but he sent me a set of reproduction decals, which I've now applied. And, you know, with these brand new decals on this classic vintage G.I. Joe toy, it really makes the item pop, and it's a terrific display piece. I'm just struggling to figure out where I'm going to display it. Now, coming in at number 2, this is my second favourite toy pickup of the year. I've kind of cheated here because I've got a number of different items that I've all kind of packaged together. But that's this group of test shot kind of product sample Desert Rat parts. Now, the actual finished Desert Rat action figure didn't make this list. I didn't want to have more than one Desert Rat entry on the list, and although I am, you know, absolutely overwhelmed and honoured to be immortalised as the Desert Rat action figure from the Valorverse Action Force toy line, I didn't have that item on this list. You know, if I was only going to have one item, I wanted to pick something kind of rare and obscure. And just prior to me leaving the United States early this year after my trip to Joe Fest, Bobby very graciously gave me a set of test shot parts, which I've kind of put together here on this little display board, as well as a very early production sample of the Desert Rat action figure. As you can see, his rifle is unpainted. He doesn't have the tattoo on his forearm. There's no paint applications on the body armor, vest, or on the shamar. And the drop leg medic pouch and knife are also unpainted. And I'm a sucker for these kind of early concept pieces, whether they be production samples, test shot parts, or genuine prototypes. I go nuts for that kind of stuff. So this is my favourite Desert Rat acquisition of 2022. Now, before I reveal my top pick, my favourite toy pickup of 2022, I'm going to do a honourable mention shout out to the Motu Origins King Randor. Now, I actually stepped away from collecting the Motu Origins line quite some time ago. I want to say more than 12 months ago. I collected the first couple of waves and then a few choice figures here and there. But so much stuff was coming out so rapidly, and everyone else was collecting it and everyone else was making videos about it. So, like, you know, I'm not going to really waste my time with this. I've got quite an extensive vintage collection of Masters of the Universe. So I really don't need to be picking up this modern Origins line. But if there was going to be one character I just couldn't say no to, that was King Randor. And he came out a little while ago. He only arrived here in the mail very recently. I want to say he's arrived in the last 2 weeks. If he's going to be my final Motu Origins figure, I feel like I've gone out with a bang because, you know, he's very important. Alright, so now we get down to my number one toy pickup of 2022. And this was actually a Christmas gift from Mrs. Analog Toys. It is the boxed vintage Action Man Electronic Command Center from 1980. And I have pined after this piece ever since I saw it in an Action Man catalogue. You know, it was first advertised in 1980, but I don't think I would have seen it until around 82 when I was probably around 5 years old. It's this large blow-molded pillbox that seats a couple of Action Man figures. And seriously, I have wanted this toy for the last 40 years. I was able to find one on eBay. It wasn't cheap, but it was in the kind of condition I wanted, with working electronics, all of the accessories. And when I showed it to Mrs. Analog Toys, and she was like, "You really want that, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'll get it for you if you pay the shipping." And I was like, I'm more than happy with that because shipping from the UK wasn't cheap. And it was fantastic for me to really close out the year with this item. I think the only other item on this list that arrived more recently than the Action Man Electronic Command Center is the Infantry Commando that came as part of the Special Deployment series, and that actually arrived just the day before Christmas Eve. But to end the year on a high note and acquire a long desired grail for my vintage Action Man collection, I'm absolutely chuffed. So thank you all for watching, and thank you all for being keen supporters of the Analog Toys YouTube channel right throughout 2022. It's been a bumper year for us. I was really hoping that the channel would hit 50,000 subscribers before year end. We're very, very close. I don't think we're quite going to make it, but we're most likely going to cross that milestone in January of 2023. So even that aside, it's been a wonderful year, and I can't wait to see you all again in the next video. Cheers.